was him too. And welcome into this episode of Craze's Corner. Try number 2 for episode number 2. We're all here this time. We got wide receivers and their ideal spots to land in the draft. We just recorded a running back show, so go check that one out if you haven't already. And I'm joined with Jeff and Will from media. How are we doing tonight?
Doing all right.
Great. Yeah, we got 2 higher prospects to look at today at the wide receiver position, and then Will's done a little bit of a deeper take for his Minnesota Vikings, so stay tuned for that one. But I'm going to start us off with a higher touted prospect, and that's Luther Burden. And I have him going to Houston as his ideal landing spot. I think you look at a team that maybe Tank Dell comes near the end of the season. They have Nico Collins, and they just lost Stephon Diggs as well. I think Burden comes in and fills that Stephon Diggs slot role really well. And what he can do after the catch, I think, is really what this Houston offense needs. I think that's a perfect opportunity because Tank Dell's not going to be around much this year. They have Nico Collins, who's really a target hog. But outside of that, C.J. Stroud needs someone else to get the ball to. And what we saw from Stephon Diggs last year, or when it was just Tank Dell, is that the wide receiver 2 in Houston is still a valuable position. So for fantasy, Luther Burden is one of the wide receivers I like if he can end up in Houston. He is one of my higher wide receiver prospects. I have him right up there with Tet. To me, I have Burden turning out to be a better wide receiver in the NFL, assuming he goes to the right situation than Tet would be. So for me, I like Burden a lot in Houston, and I think he could be a definitely good fantasy football asset. Will, I know you also like Burden. Do you think Houston is a good spot for him to land?
Yeah, I look, if you're top at the wide receiver, you're hoping.
Yeah.
Right? You got a 1A already there. You got a quarterback that seems to be hitting all his progress and, will hopefully continue to get better. You got just a good situation. That's where I want to go.
Yeah. Jeff, what do you think about Burden in Houston? You think he'd be a good fit there and good fantasy option?
Yeah, I think he would. I mean, any of these higher-end wide receivers, I could see them going in that slot. But I think Burden is big, he's strong. I think he's a great receiver, going to be a great receiver. I mean, he just slide right in. That's one thing about Houston. They don't have too many just huge glaring needs other than wide receiver right now. I don't know if Diggs was afraid of getting hurt. After he got hurt, Dale got hurt.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting out of here. So, no, but I think it'll be a perfect fit for him.
Yeah, if they go wide receiver early, and then we'll talk about it on the last show, but if they can get some offensive line depth in the later rounds, which you can in this draft class, I think that'd be ideal for Houston, give C.J. Stroud some protection and give him another weapon with Tank Dell being out. Jeff, who is the wide receiver you want to talk about, and where do you want to see him land?
I would say Emeka Egbuka, if I pronounced his name right. He needs to go somewhere that needs a wide receiver that can catch pretty much everything. It would be a duplication of the guy that they had, which they don't know if he's going to even be able to play this year. And it's the team that is a mess right now. Everybody keeps talking about they need a quarterback. I'm like, they don't even have receivers right now. That is the New Orleans Saints. If you could get a carbon copy of a guy that was successful for you, you might need to go ahead and take this guy and put him there. Hopefully you get a quarterback as well that can throw him the ball. But I don't know if I have seen any other team in worse of shape right now to where they just need everything on offense. I mean, with the news Carr being hurt, Kamara is still questionable. You just got Brandon Cooks back. He's 99 years old. Rashid Shaheed, he hasn't played since, I don't know. They have nobody. It's just crazy. So I would think let's get one guy that we can actually depend on and try to build from there.
Yeah, as a Panthers fan, I couldn't be happier with the state of the New Orleans Saints. All the news I hear it just makes me smile. I really hope they end up going Jackson Dart at 9. It would just make my day. But for me, I would like to see Emeka go somewhere else, somewhere with maybe that needs wide receiver help still. but isn't that bad of a team because, like you said, we don't know who's throwing him the ball. Aaron Rodgers has been rumored to New Orleans now. They could draft a guy. They like Sanders. They like Dart. So to me, the Saints is a mess. I would not want anyone to go to the Saints. If Tet went to the Saints, I'm not in. If Burden, who we just talked about, goes to the Saints, I don't love that. Will, what do you think about Egbuka? You had concerns about Egbuka no matter where he goes.
I'm just concerned about his separation. Like, I think he's a slot guy in the NFL. I don't think he can play all three positions.
Mm-hmm.
So it limits him a little bit. And honestly, like, to me, the wide receiver depth is there's a top tier, and then there's guys that are good like fifth round, and those middle rounds are, I'm a little iffy on the guys in second, third round because I don't know. To me, they could go in the fourth or fifth to teams, but I just think he, in a weak wide receiver class, I don't think it's special. He's elevated his ranking. I'm a little leery. Like, if he went to the Rams, I'd be like, okay,
yeah,
that makes sense, right? The Saints
Cup
would make me nervous until they figure out what the quarterback.
Why I said the Saints, just because I think he's the type of receiver that Kellen Moore could use, and then I don't think he's going to go in the first round. He may slide second round. So that's why I was like, I can see this working out perfectly for the Saints. They'll maybe get Shedeur Sanders. I'm with you. I'm not a guy that trusts Jackson Dart. He reminds me of a Blaine Gabbert. They had to fuck him up all that time, and he ended up being like a backup. So,
But he'll go. Jackson Dart will go in the first round of fantasy drafts. No doubt in my mind, he might go top 7 if you have 2 quarterback leagues. He'll go.
Yeah, he will. I think LA would be a good spot for him to go, or for Egbuka to go, so that he can be that slot guy. They have Nakua and Adams outside. Yeah. Another team that doesn't have a quarterback but could utilize him in the slot would be the Steelers with Metcalf and Pickens on the outside. They have no quarterback, so for fantasy, that's not a good spot. But for his career development, would be a good spot where he can go and he can be the slot. So there's definitely a couple spots that he could land. And then Will, you're going a little bit deeper cut than Jeff and I did. Deep. Who do you want to talk about?
I'm going deep because living in Dallas and, my family SMU relationship and watching the Mustangs do more than anyone expected this year in college ball. This young man started off at University of Miami and then transferred over to SMU this year, was a wide receiver at Miami, running back, kick return, special teams, motion at SMU, and that's Braxton Smith. And I'm going to say that the Vikings brought him in as one of their 30. They talked to him at the combine. If you look at the Vikings running back room right now, they got the first and second down figured out. I don't know if they really have a third down. And then with his wide receiver experience, you could put him in the slot and you put him in kick returns. And this kid, most boards have him like in the 150s, 160s. I think he gets drafted much higher than that, unfortunately. But my hope is that he falls to the Vikings like in the 130s. And he's a guy in the right system, could be very dangerous if you have other pieces around where he can just be that third down back or a slot receiver, put him in there. His numbers, if you watched him play at SMU, he's going to translate well into modern NFL offenses. And I think he's just buried because the position change. And then I think a lot of people, SMU didn't do well in the college football playoffs. Kind of people like, they were overrated. But I tell you keep an eye on him, and I hope he falls to the Vikings because he's exactly the last piece I think they need on offense to really create mismatches for any defense.
Yeah, put him on Minnesota, and I like that a lot. I think that you give him to an offensive-minded head coach who has shown in the league he can do whatever he wants, and he can get his guys involved, and he can make bad quarterbacks look good. So Minnesota would be the perfect spot for him to land.
Kansas City would scare me.
Yeah.
That would – just third downs? Oh, my God. Yeah, it would be a mess.
Yeah, or put him on a team like the Saints, and I'm not touching him with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
So So put him, if he lands in Minnesota, they did bring him in, like you said. So I would like that landing spot a lot. I think he'd be a sneaky guy in fantasy that you could play in your flex, depending on the matchups, especially Addison struggled with injuries throughout his career.
Well, and Addison's going to be suspended. Addison's probably at least going to be suspended 2 games at the start of the season. So, and to that point, since we're talking wide receivers, don't put it past the Vikings to draft a wide receiver in the first round if they move back to like 31 or 32.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that would make everybody's fantasy draft like, whoa, wait a sec.
I've seen Addison's name in trade talks too.
Yes,
like trade rumors, not really trade talks, but trade rumors is that Addison.
My gut, Rec just out there speculating. Vikings draft a wide receiver higher than people think, and they move Addison after June 1 to Miami for Ramsey.
Good. I'll take Addison off your hands. You know, the Panthers could use a wide receiver, so maybe we'll get in there. But I do like that. Anything you want to add, Jeff, before we close up here?
I was just wondering what round you think he's going to go in, Smith.
Right now, most mocks, or if you're running mocks, he's going pick one high end 135, 140, low end 180. I think watching who the teams have been talking to him, I think he's a top 120 pick, and it'll be one of the surprise. Everybody like, oh wow, someone's reaching. Mm-hmm.
He could be a guy that day 3 opens up and is where teams are trying to move up to get him. Is kind of the situation I see for him at this point. Is that he'll be around beginning of day 3, and he'll be like, okay, we should be able to position ourselves where we think we can get him. So hopefully it ends up in Minnesota and not with a team that would misuse him. Yeah, not with the Jets. Does not give him to the Saints. Let's keep him away from those teams. Let's put him on a good offense that can utilize him right. So there we go. 3 wide receivers and 3 ideal landing spots. Like I said, go check out the running back if you haven't already. That one will be posted on the YouTube as well. And thank you, Jeff and Will, for joining me. We'll be back recording a show next week before the draft, but it won't be about the draft. So this will be our draft show. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
It won't be about the draft?
No, it'll be way too close to the draft because they don't get posted until Thursday. So we're already at the draft by the time it gets posted. So next week's show can't be about the draft, but the week after that, we'll talk all about the landing spots, what we liked, what we didn't like. Hope you guys enjoy, and we're coming right up on it. So let's go. NFL draft.
All right. Thanks,